Okay, it is 6:34. We have a quorum, well, we have more than a quorum actually. Can I get a motion to open the Special Education Board meeting on November 13th?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
It's coming up, hold on. I have to log in.
And the vote is up. Everyone ready?
Just waiting. How long? She's good. Okay.
Okay, we do not have a student representative as this is a special meeting and we, in advance gave them the dates of the meeting, so there's no student representative available this evening. Would everybody please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Just as a reminder, this is a special meeting that we scheduled during our last Monday meeting, and the purpose of this meeting was to go over the, accept the audit report before the due date. A couple agenda items have been added to this, so as we go along, I would like questions and answers possibly. Oh, but before that, is there anyone here for public input? No? Okay. Then I think we can move right into the agenda. So this is as, oh, these are all separate, right? It's not a
Yes.
consent agenda. Okay, good. So, moving right along into item 5.2, can I get a motion to approve the minutes from November 5th, 2018?
They're not attached to this, are they?
They should be. You should have them.
They are not
They're
on
not.
this one.
The other documents are attached, but this one is not.
Yeah, they're not. Let me just double check. Oh, if you go onto the link, click into 5.2, right on the main agenda item details,
Okay.
they are the view minutes.
Thank you. Thank you. Did you ask for a motion?
Can I get a motion to accept the minutes?
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Second.
And all those in favor,
Hold
the
on one
voting will
second.
be coming up.
Um, okay. Has
And-
anyone's, oh, there we go.
Enter the votes. And please announce the votes.
Okay, it's unanimous. Closing the vote.
Item 5.3, accept special education committee recommendations. Can I get a motion to accept these recommendations?
So moved.
Can I get a second? All those in favor, bring up the vote.
I'm sorry, who motioned?
Chris.
Who second?
Diana.
Diana.
Any discussion?
Oh, sorry, any discussion? Okay, if there's no discussion on the 5.3 item, can we bring it to vote?
Okay, it's unanimous. I'm closing.
Thank you. Item 5.4 is to accept the audit report. Can I get a motion to accept the audit report?
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Second.
And discussion.
I would just request that at a future business meeting that we have a public discussion about some of the ways we're gonna address the topics that were raised in the audit report this year.
that's the part of the discussion I'm having with, that I had today with, the auditing firm, is that we're not accepting tonight, I'm recommending not to accept the management letter, because there was items in there that we didn't have a chance to do an exit interview with the accountants as they were leaving. And so some of those things had been done, and so they weren't recognized in the management letter. And when we have those things in there, I want them to be completely accurate. So for example, they had that we hadn't filed for the stacks. I have Carlene here too, because we've discussed this about 4 times today. They had in fact finished filing for the stacks. And so just that be reflected, because what we have to then do is saying, go do this when we've already done this. And we did it while they were here. So that should have been reflected in that way. So I just want it to be really accurate, you know, and those kind of things really bother me.
So tonight, we're not accepting the management letter, just the audit report.
The
Right.
audit financial
audit
findings and
financial,
actually
yeah.
class activity fund
Yeah.
financial statement?
Now, in the past, it's interesting, 'cause for me, this is where I was really worried, because I had seen, on, you know, on my email, the management letters, and in my head, I'm answering them, wanting to answer those questions desperately, so I appreciate you giving me this little bit of time to look it over and to be able to call the auditors today. Christine, our district treasurer, Phil Kenter, business administrator, and Carlene sat in on a phone conference with him, and the recommended guidance he gave us was that he understood, you know, that I really felt like we should have had those exit interviews to kind of go through some of those comments, which many of them were really valuable, but I just wanted them to be really accurate as well. So he says the management letter, which you have in front of you, does not have to be submitted. In the past, they always had to go together. They always had to go together. But as of this year, the management letter isn't due until January 15th. So I'd like that opportunity to sit with the audit committee and go through some of the relevant pieces that, you know, he may want to make edits to that, I don't know, but that's really up to the audit committee. I just want to be able to share the fact finding that I've done and that some of the district employees have done around that management letter.
So then the audit committee would come and make a recommendation to the board on which one of those they want us to make, take action on.
Yeah, and Peter would come back, so he'd be with them, so he would come back. And he may make no changes at all, but, as he learned today, I wanna be heard. So, cause it's really hard on a district if you've actually gone back and done work and it's not noted, you know? So this is the financials are due tomorrow, and they can be, electronic to New York State, so we'll be on time for that. But I really want to do the work, and I asked him if he could base it around our 2 board meetings, in December, so that we wouldn't be adding more time and dates to folks, so that everybody could be here and be present for those.
And it'll be covered in a board meeting, not just in an audit committee meeting.
No, be in a board meeting, yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
Yeah, great.
yeah,
And that makes a lot of sense, I think.
yeah.
I just had one question, with regards to the stacks. I don't have the report on me, but,
The management letter?
the management letter that said that it was several years in arrears.
Yeah, and we got a memo from New York State when Carlene came on board, saying that we could go back all those years. Now, not, you know, I don't wanna go too in-depth because I really wanna have the opportunity for the board, but, we got a grace period letter from New York State saying that we could go back and do all the filings going back to 2015. Our business office gave that to Carlene probably the week she started here. And we had been we've trained, for the last, 2.5, maybe 3 years, we trained the secretary to the PPS director how to do those. And we've been funding that training, from BOCES, and they actually sent their person out to help us, book walk us through the rest of those filings. So we went back and did all those filings. So you do wanna give people credit for the work they've done, you know? It's sort of like, I went back and did all this work, and then it shows up on a management letter that you didn't do that work, and it was a lot of work. It was a lot, so.
The key will be to have the proper dates too, so that there's a chronology in the report of when the work was done.
Right, and we have when it was filed with the state.
Right.
So the state logged it as 10/10, so we can show when we put that information up as well. Because there isn't a dollar that we're not gonna chase after if we can, so. I hope that makes sense. So the financial report, which is outstanding, is going to go up, but the management letter, which is kind of our, here's what you have to fix and here's what you have to respond to, so we have to make responses to all those. I just wanna make sure there's clarity with those folks that were auditing us, that there was work done, and there was things that were addressed. And I think we would have had that, had they not been so rushed there right at the end. I think we also learned a lot that we have to start, when you're starting with new auditors, you really should be starting in July, because they haven't been our auditors for like 6 or 7 years. So, but I think changing auditors is an outstanding best practice, because they do look at it from a different lens, and, I'm sure Susan got a full view of that with her committee on, that another lens is a very healthy thing for a school district.
Okay, any other questions?
I would just say that, I think there was one other point in the management letter about, how SHAPE is invoiced and stuff, that when he actually spoke to us at the audit committee meeting, after we walked him through how SHAPE actually works, he said that one also might need to be revised. So
Right.
if you're going, talking about revising some of them, that one might
Right.
be no longer applicable.
And you generally don't double whammy somebody on an audit report. So this was our comptroller's report that we adopted back in 2016, and their entire bullet punch was around our child care program. And we put all those segregations in place. And the district had to spend money to make that happen.
We did.
So that was quite an investment. So they hadn't seen this, and they hadn't, I think, seen all the pieces that we put in place, and I think the board was very thoroughly briefed on those. And those things are still in place. We have lost an assistant business administrator, so maybe not exit interviewing him, he could talk about the pain that was involved in that, and the cost that was involved in that. Right.
Thank you.
Okay, all those in favor of accepting the audit report with just the financials and not the management letter, please enter your votes.
Is it clear from the vote that it's without the management letter?
It's not on the
It
agenda.
should be.
It
It's
says
not.
accept the audit report for the fiscal year ending.
But in the past, when we voted, we didn't vote on the letter separately from the audit report in
It
the
was all-
past, so one might assume they're coupled together. It's just good to know.
I can add, not including,
Please, not including
The
management letter to be filed by January 15th, 2019.
It's just
sorry,
more transparent.
what's the date? Filed.
January 15th, 2019.
Okay.
Okay, item 5.
I'm sorry, I'm just waiting for one more vote.
Sorry.
Okay, that's, 5 unanimous, yes.
And the edited motion will show up?
Mm-hmm.
Item 5.5, can I get a motion to appoint Frances McDermott as special education teacher for leave replacement?
So moved. Second.
Any discussion?
My only question is that we've had 2 board meetings since this person started to be employed and paid in the district, so I don't understand why it didn't get on an earlier agenda.
He's been the substitute teacher in that classroom.
Mhm.
So he's the teacher that's been away, has been away by week, so we've employing him as a substitute. On October 29th, we received a letter from the teacher on leave that they were going to be out for a prolonged leave. So that changes his situation from going a day-to-day sub to a long-term sub. So in general practice, that's what we do to take care of our long-term subs, so we don't lose them.
That makes sense. So
Yeah.
should this have been on last week's agenda? Because we had a meeting on November 5th, and that was after they started, it was a week after they started
I don't
this
know if he
position.
received the letter was dated, so I don't know
Oh,
when
I
he
see.
received the letter. I would have to check with Jeff Nichols, the high
So
school
you may not have
principal.
had all the documentation.
He may not have, and we couldn't make a move without the letter.
Right.
Right, and it had to be from a doctor, so, does that make sense?
It
Yeah.
does, thank you.
Any more discussion? Okay, moving to the vote. All those in favor?
That's 5 yes, unanimous. Closing.
Moving on to agenda item 5.6, approve terms and conditions of employment for Thomas Primiano as interim assistant to the school business administrator. Can I get a motion to approve 5.6?
So moved.
Second,
Discussion?
I have emailed you some, or texted you some questions about this, I don't know, I
Yeah, I did, pull up that
Alright.
email first, was there
sorry,
more
I
than
haven't
one?
been on email, I was at the PTA,
No, no,
PTSA
no.
meeting before this.
No, it's all right,
There you go.
I just, I'm gonna just go for my
Maybe I
notes.
came on late, I'm sorry.
Okay. Here we go. So,
I had emailed a couple of questions today. One was just that if this is, are we still looking for a full-time replacement?
yes, we have posted, it's been
Right.
posted. I don't know what date Mary Domcheck did it, but I know that it has been, we should really say reposted,
Right. it
because we
needs to be
reopened the
reposted.
search.
Right.
Because the person that we were gonna, appoint at the last board meeting, really at the 11th hour, let us know, I think it was the Thursday before, that he was taking another position.
Right.
So, this means we've gone almost 2 months without an assistant business administrator.
So this is temporary until we fill the spot, not that we're gonna keep him on to the end of the year, even when we fill the spot.
Right, it's a cautionary tale right now, because we've got, the interview's closed, or the application's closed when, Phil, on Monday?
19th.
On the when?
Next Monday, the 19th.
Next Monday, okay, and then we have to go through the interview process, and so I'm just worried that should we have things that are stacked up, that we don't have, what showed up on our audit was segregation of duties, that everybody has their roles and responsibilities, and everybody knows them, so by having him come back, we may need him to come back again when this new person is learning their roles and their responsibilities.
Right, in the
So-
transition, which we've done
and,
before.
yeah, and there was a good point, we didn't have a cap, and normally we do put a cap on
That's why I
that.
realized.
So that was something we have done in these positions in the past, but in his budget line, because he hasn't been here for 2 months, that's a salary that we haven't been paying out to anybody. So I think that's gonna be our watermark for making sure we don't ever go past that. And, since he's working nights and weekends, he's keeping his full-time job, I don't think we're gonna pass that threshold. I think that the new person's gonna come into a lot of work. I think that's what we're gonna be looking at.
So it sounds like the plan is that as soon as we can fill this with the full-time position, there may still be some transition with Tom, and then he'll come off the books. So the goal is not to have him here to the end of June 2019, but to actually have him fill in and then just do a transition.
Right,
And that the
And-
cap should be less than what we have saved in the past few weeks.
what we've captured
What
over
we've
the last,
captured.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, over the last couple, I think it's been months now,
It has been.
yeah, yeah.
That's helpful, thank you.
And again, we are responding to an audit, and we wanna make
Right.
sure that a lot of it centers around the business office and who, everybody's jobs and duties. And when you're in a little tiny district and somebody steps away, I always say it's not just something gets pulled out, it's like a rip in the fabric, because you're used to, it's not a title, it's a person.
You don't have redundancy,
You don't have redundancy,
which is a
right.
challenge.
And is there, I think the other question was, is there a duty statement, or is that something Tom will be preparing
I
for the
think
transition?
I think we're gonna be having to work on that with the transition, because he had picked up so many, as we went through each audit, he was picking up a lot of that work. So I think that really has to be more fully developed.
Yeah, the management letter is what kind of prompted that question of, we know that we have to have greater clarity of roles and responsibilities. And so to have someone just come back in, we wanna make sure we're really clear, obviously,
Yeah.
what the expectations are.
Yeah, and it's largely gonna be what his duties have been,
Mhm.
so, which I said in the email is that, without somebody sitting in that desk and doing some of this preparation and work, especially preparing for the budget, when you start putting those budget materials together, it's really nice to have someone who's done it in the past.
Absolutely.
So then, is there like an actual duty statement that the new person will be able to look at and be like, okay, this?
I think we're gonna have to, I don't think we have one, I think we're
Okay.
gonna have to develop one.
Okay, any further discussion on item 5.6? no? If not, can we bring it to a vote?
Okay, you have 5 yes, it's unanimous, I'm gonna close the vote.
Okay. I believe there were some clarification issues from last week's meeting that, you wanted to clear up with regards to the retroactive.
Yeah, there was
appointment
there was a
of
concern, I
employees.
didn't get to watch the whole video, so, that'll be for my viewing pleasure tomorrow. But I know there was concern about, the appointment of, Lori's, Cider, the, food service worker 1, that this looked like it was a past, that somebody had been working since September 18th, and we were just now accepting their terms and conditions at the last board meeting, and I think there were board members that were concerned about that. She actually was appointed back at our September 17th meeting and started working on September 18th. However, her terms and conditions, the reason we reapproved it at the last board meeting, it doesn't mean she's been working without a contract. She was board appointed back on September 17th, started working on September 18th, but there were errors in her terms and conditions of employment. So once we identify the errors in the terms and conditions, a lot of superintendents will just do a, CMBG, I'm good with this. That's not what has been our culture here. If we find an error in the terms and conditions, we bring it back to the board for board approval. They weren't big. It was that her appointment was to 2020, but inside the working document, it kept saying 2019. So it was it was a word error, but that's the kind of stuff that you don't want showing up, like for auditors. I don't like that. So I did send it back to the board, but I think there was some confusion about, were we appointing somebody at the November 5th meeting who actually started working on September 18th? No, we had a board appointment, and I have it right here, for the September 17th board meeting. However, her terms and conditions of employment was not correct. There was errors in it. So we don't do the superintendent's signature and the business administrator's signature. We send it back to you guys. So, and that's what we've been doing for 5 years, and I think it's good practice.
Oh, I agree. And I think the second one was with regards to the driver's education instructor.
I don't know that one.
He didn't start, he started, September 28th, I believe it was.
And we appointed him last week.
We appointed him, it was
November
missed
5th.
by the October, we had one business meeting before November 5th, and it was missed on that one. So it was like 5 weeks, so one board meeting over.
Okay.
Although for educational meetings, we put these on too, if we need to appoint people, so it's not as if we have to hold out to the business meeting. We do it when we need to.
Yeah. So there was
We've
one
eliminated,
educational in
we have less
between.
meetings now than we've used to, so we have less frequency, but it was just that they've been employed and working in the district for 5+ weeks without board approval.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think
don't-
it
I
had,
don't know that one.
And I
no,
don't know
it just
if
had
there was
been
hasn't
brought up
been
more,
represented.
more towards attention with the auditor
Yeah.
as well. To make sure we're not doing retroactive
Right.
approvals, or actually, if we are, we're not paying them in advance of the approval.
Right.
He hadn't been paid, the invoice came in, and that's what prompted it, so he hadn't been paid before he was appointed.
Okay, good.
But still, you
Yeah.
know, even if somebody's not paid,
Yeah.
they should not be employed in any manner unless
Yeah.
they've been approved.
It was missed.
Okay, let's see if I can get back to my agenda now. We have no items for discussion. Any unfinished business? None. Public input 2.
Rushing the stand.
Okay, if there is no public input 2, can I get a motion to
So
adjourn?
moved. World's shortest board meeting.
That was Diana and Chris, right?
Yes.
Can I get a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Wow.
I think
You
you
got
had
that.
first
You
and
just need to
second
vote.
already.
Sorry. Stealing my thunder.
All right, that's awesome.
That would be unanimous.
All right, it is 6:59 and this special
It's
meeting
over.
Victoria, thank you for
now
this is helpful.
Oh, good.